All right, we are here at my vermihut indoor worm bin, and we've got kind of three objectives when we dig in here. One, we put in a pretty sizable piece of onion, and we want to kind of dispel the urban legend on whether or not you should put onions in your worm bin. We also want to get the volume up because we are going to be putting another top feeding tray on this, and this will sit for 60 days before we harvest it. And with that, I'm only going to be feeding slow foods. So let's go ahead and dive in here. And the first thing I notice is we definitely have kind of a trench in here, and that's because we put a large paper towel roll in here. So let's go ahead and dig in and see how things are going. And there's just a lot of castings right here. So this is kind of ripping apart, and we will put that in with the rest of the bedding if I can remember. So let's go ahead and dig in here. Now we put a lot of food in here. We had 3 peach halves. We had a whole banana peel. We had that big piece of onion and some spinach and lettuce. Also a little piece of tomato. And at one point, the executive producer said that is enough. So it was kind of a big feeding. Right here, I see what I think is part of that banana peel. And sure enough, here's the stem part. So under here is where the banana peel was. And let's just kind of lift up and see what's in there. And right here is some of the toilet paper rolls I think that we had put in before, and they are still kind of attacking that. So I'll help them by ripping it up and making it a little bit smaller. And right here is where the banana peel was. So banana peels are slow foods. It has been 13 days since we were in here last, and they haven't gotten rid of it. They eat all the little flesh around it, but then the peel is what takes longer. Let's keep digging in. And I think I'm just gonna have to pull right here because I think this is the paper towel roll. And it looks like it ripped in half. So with those 4 toilet paper rolls we had put in about 20 days ago, they had made kind of tunnels and filled it with castings. So let's see how they did with this paper towel roll. And we've got a bunch in there for sure, but they didn't quite fill it up as much, maybe because there weren't as many entrance holes as the 4 had. They had 8 entrance holes, this has only had 2. But right there you can get a really good close-up of both a red wiggler and a tinier blue worm. Not necessarily shorter, but definitely thinner blue worm right there, right next to a red wiggler. And this bin has a mix. So let's keep digging in. Here is a mango seed. And see what else we've got here. I don't see any signs of the peaches. And this, oh, here we go. This right here is the onion. Now, when we put it in here, oh, look at that. Look at that. Any question about whether worms like onions, you can see it right there. Now, there may be a couple of reasons why people say don't put onions in. One is because they do have an odor to them. And right now I cannot smell anything. So I think because of the number of worms I have about 4,000, they were able to attack it and eat most of it down before it smells. So one thing is, you know, the smell that can happen if you have too much of a food like an onion in there. And then the other thing is people think they won't eat them. I think we have definitely dispelled that. So the key is to right size your onion piece that you're going to put in for the number of worms you have. So this bin has about 4,000. This size onion piece, and I'll put a picture, or maybe I've already put a picture to show you how big it started with, is the right size for 4,000 worms. If you only have 500, maybe a piece that small might be better size for you. And this part right here is kind of the dry, papery outside of the onion. So that's probably why they're taking a little bit longer to get in there. And I will eventually get that sticker off. Right now, it's just not worth trying to peel it off. So very cool. I think we have dispelled the urban legend. You can put them in your worm bins, just put them in the right quantities. And there's the little root part of it. All right, let's keep digging under. I don't think we're gonna see any sign of those peaches, and we did not put the peach seed in here, so we won't see that either. And the piece of watermelon we put in there is not gonna show up. So they've done a really good job of turning all that food and the bedding into castings. So really impressed with these worms. Look at that. There's just so many right there. I love it. Love seeing the worms. They are fascinating creatures that do so much good by getting rid of all the dead and decaying organic matter. So let's go ahead and mix this up, and then we'll set up for our feeding. What do you think? They did a pretty good job, huh?
Mm-hmm. How big was that onion?
It was It wasn't a quarter of an onion, but it was like an eighth of a big piece of onion. So a lot. There was a lot. All right, so I have aired everything out, mixed it all up, and I've pushed all the castings to the side here. And then I put all our remnants down the middle. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna give a pretty good feeding here of slow foods, and we're also gonna fill it all the way to the top with bedding, because this is the last time we're gonna feed this, and then it's gonna go underneath for 60 days before we harvest it. So let's get going with the bedding. So my bedding of choice is shredded cardboard boxes, and I just take the corrugated cardboard box and I put it through my 12 sheet cross-cut micro shredder, and it creates these awesome little tiny pieces of cardboard. And I prefer cardboard over paper because it has some structure, therefore it allows some air throughout the bin, whereas paper for me tends to mat down and kind of creates pockets of anaerobic activity within the bin. So let's go ahead and add our food here. So this is what we had in mind. We've got a bunch of pineapple pieces from pineapple that we've grown in our garden, and a whole bunch of banana peels. Now bananas themselves are very fast foods, but the peels are slow foods. So all the foods that I have in here are slow foods, unless it was kind of attached because I freeze all my food and it just kind of got attached to it. But let's go ahead and put this stuff in. So we'll start with the pineapple chunks, and we'll just throw those down here right on top of this bedding. Here's the end piece right there. And then we'll just kind of line it with these banana peels. So there we go. Put those in there like that. And the last one, this looks like a very yellow feeding here. So for color, we'll put in a little bit of tangerine peel and that little piece of green lettuce. All right, so there we go. There's the feeding. I'm just gonna kind of smash it down. Now this is a giant feeding, especially a giant feeding of slow food. So make sure that you're feeding appropriate to the number of worms you have. If you have about 500 worms or 1,000 worms, then you need to do maybe this much food. If you have 2,000 worms, then right there. And then if you have 4,000, this is a good feeding right there. So let's go ahead and jump in with a little bit of worm chow. This is just expired stuff from my pantry that I put in my Magic Bullet blender and blend it all up. And then next we'll put in some used coffee and tea grounds, and we'll add a little bit more than we normally do just because this is going to be the last feeding for them. And then finally we'll just add a little bit of our eggshell grit, and that's so that they can use it to help grind up their food. They have gizzards within their digestive tract. All right, so on top, we're just gonna put a little bit more of this bedding, and you see that it's dry. This vermihut has a lid, so it keeps its moisture real well, so I'm not worried about putting in dry bedding like this. And then certainly the food that I feed has a lot of moisture content to it. So let's keep trying to fill in the edges here. There we go, like that. And I am gonna put the castings over the top once I have this in. All right, wow, so there we go. I don't know how graceful I'm gonna be with trying to get castings over the top of this, but again, I'm not worried because that lid does a really good job of kind of acting like plastic over the top of a feeding like I do in my other bins. I've got a couple other bins. I've got a tiny worm bin. I also have a large 20-gallon outdoor worm bin if you wanna check out those videos to see how I manage them. I like to do different experiments with them, that kind of thing. And then if you're wondering how to start a vermihut, I just released a video with my neighbor Jeff where we started a vermihut from scratch. So that's another good video to watch right there. So almost done getting this totally on top. And even with this, almost all the way to the top, it's going to sink down as they eat that food and eat some of these pieces of shredded cardboard and turn them into castings. So I think I will add a little bit of worm chow on top. And then after I add this worm chow, I'm just gonna add a little bit more of that shredded cardboard in order to kind of fill in the gaps here because I wanna get the volume high. My latest harvests have been about 10 pounds in here, and I'm hoping maybe we can get to maybe 12 pounds of castings. And that produces about 10 to 12 pounds of castings every 2 months. Look at that guy. Oh, that was just a little chunk, so let's spread that out right there. All right, so I'm just gonna fill in the holes here, kind of on the edges like that. And again, I'm only doing this because I'm trying to get the volume as high as I can for the last feeding. Then I've got a couple of these paper towels, soiled paper towels. I'll just put them on top as well. And then hopefully the worms will come up and eat these. So I hope your worm bins are doing well. I hope you're having a great day. So happy vermicomposting, everybody. Take care now.